So get this right. So get this in. AJ, man. It's so good. Dude, it really is good having you. I know we've been talking about this for a minute.
It would always be something like in passing.
Yeah, well, I'd be like, hey, man, I got to get you on the podcast. And I think what it was, and I know, I don't think I was ready for you. I don't think I was. And I mean that in the respectful way of like, I feel like I wanted to be warmed up, experienced, everything in order to have a conversation like this and to really listen to something.
I mean, that's what a lot of things nowadays, especially at least in my life, where you are anticipating something, like you're looking forward to it, and I can see you still like grinding away at it. So I never really lost faith that it was gonna not happen. But like, yeah, I knew that you were looking for the right time, and that's how you you want something to be good. You gotta
work for it.
Make sure the timing's right.
Yeah, I was, and I was like, I want to be ready for this conversation. I want to be ready for like what we, this profound, story, because it's not like I haven't followed it or seen it. Mm-hmm. So, as far as with this podcast, I was just like, I have my story. My story is kind of a bit of a sad story for most people, homeless, just kind of dealt with my own abandonment issues.
I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever told me the story.
Oh yeah. I mean, so for me, I left home at a really, really young age. I think it was like 13 or 14. My parents just did not get along, and it just got really bad. So I kind of just took it upon myself to make my own path. And I lied on my first job application. I said I was 16 when I was like 15, and I got a job. I was already working 50, 60 hours a week while trying to go to school, dropped out of school. Just kind of got in with the wrong crowd. Heroin was really big in Torrington and pills and stuff like that. And, got into some trouble, that way, but, really dealt with my own abandonment issues and all that other stuff. But everybody has a story, so my story is more of definitely a sad one, but it seems to be coming to, fruition with all the things that I'm trying to accomplish. I think I'm not even close to where I want to be. And we have some like huge announcements and stuff in the future.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So for myself, I feel like I'm doing great, but I want to be around other stories like yourself. So like having you around and having that type of story, which is something like your story to me, and we'll do an intro in a second, but your story to me was like a nightmare for me. And I mean that in a respectful way. Like, dude, I was like, I don't know. I hate it when I get a cold. I hate when I hurt my, I got in a car accident. I hurt my shoulder. Like, I was like, oh man, it sucks. Mm-hmm. But your story, like of the physicality that all the pain and everything you had to go through makes me like, holy shit. Like how I can't even put my head in there. I don't know what I would do. I don't even know if I would have it. And most people be like, Ben, you're tough as shit. You'd have it. I don't know. I mean, so why don't you, introduce yourself to everybody, and then you can kind of get into your story. I have a couple starter questions.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi. So my name is Andrew Jones, not to be confused with the former outfielder for the Yankees.
Yeah.
And what else did he play for the Braves? I think.
Yeah.
He did a UW.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with him. Oh, that's pretty cool. Born March 1st, 1990. Same birthday as Justin Bieber. I got my nickname AJ when I was in 4th grade, when I actually first moved up here in Connecticut. But before I even started in Connecticut, I was born in Ohio, Kettering, Ohio.
Okay.
Same place as Rob Dyrdek was born, and now I had no intention of associating
with him. Yeah,
with,
but
or
it's
any
like
other celebrities or anything like that.
Rob Dyrdek? Yeah, Provincetown.
Yeah. I think just to be more relatable, I guess.
Yeah.
Born in Kettering, Ohio. No memory of Ohio, really. I was really young.
Yeah.
1990.
How old were you when you came over here again?
I was 10 when I got to Connecticut.
Yeah.
So we did some moving around because my dad worked for an aerospace company.
Okay.
And so they had him moving around and whatnot. And so that actually became a normal thing in my life.
Moving around,
yeah. Because I was born in Ohio, and they were bouncing around before that, even before I was born. I was born in Ohio. Then we moved to South Florida. then spent a couple of years or so in South Florida. I think like maybe 3 years.
Yeah.
No, it was like maybe 4.5 years, I want to say.
Yeah.
And then we moved to Minnesota for 18 months.
Okay.
And then we moved back to South Florida.
Yeah.
Like another almost 2 years, and then Connecticut.
Yeah,
and
you have your
10 by the time.
Your accent is like all around because you do have
You're
that.
not the first person to say that,
dude. Yeah. Like you have that Minnesota. Like you have a little bit of Minnesota in you,
Minnesota was like 5R the most interesting one. I remember like noticing that as a kid.
The people are different.
When you go other places, people are mildly different.
Yeah, they're so different.
Subtle ways, you know.
Florida, southern Florida, dude.
Oh man, southern Florida.
That is, yeah. They're, I mean, compared to like where you're from, and then now, yeah, exactly. And then now you have Connecticut, which is just a different breed of people.
It's like
I was talking about it today.
New York, Boston.
Yeah. I mean, but it's like without any of the fun. You know, it's like Connecticut is New York, Boston without any of the fun.
Yeah. What do you do when you come to Connecticut?
You drive through it. Yeah, you drive through it.
Boston.
That's pretty much it. It's like, ooh, look, leaves. And then that's
just
it.
A decision point.
Yeah. And now you plan to stay in Connecticut.
I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
Not really.
Not really.
Like nobody, at least it's just for someone my age at this time.
Yeah.
Just not really.
It's about
unless I start getting paid, Bonko bucks or something like that. It would be a reason to stay. But even then, like you can find yourself doing much better if you just move, a few hundred miles south.
Yeah, anywhere really.
Yeah.
Now for you, I mean, your story for like I said to most people, I didn't want to like it's a nightmare. But I mean, I'm just saying, how did you go about knowing? When did you first realize that there was a problem with your heart, correct?
Right.
Your heart. When did you first realize that? How old were you? Because you were 10 when you got here, and then what happened?
Well, for the most part, I was fine for the next 10 years or so.
Yeah.
I grew up. I did sports every single year. There wasn't a year that I wasn't participating in some type of sport.
Yeah.
And in the summer, I was a part of doing something. I had parents that made sure that I was active and not just sitting around and not doing anything, contributing to anything. So that they held that over our heads, for a good reason.
To be active.
Yeah. Exactly.
Take care of yourself.
And so I was it was spring break in college. I was attending the University of New Haven, but a spring break my sophomore year. My sophomore year. I always confuse it, either my sophomore or my junior year, but I was 22 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So the year was 2012, and I was going out. I was at home for spring break, and I was going out for a regular jog, like normal stuff. I ran track all throughout high school, normal. And as soon as I pick up pace, and I use my mailbacks,
yeah,
my mailbox, as like a reference point. As soon as I started picking up pace, I could just feel it in my chest. There was just like this tightness, and then like when I went to breathe, I was just like it felt like it like my lungs had turned into sponges.
What?
That's how I describe it.
Yeah.
Or if you have like a sponge at home, and I'm talking like the big like ones that have the holes.
Yeah.
Just like put your your face into it and try to breathe. That's what it felt like.
Really?
Yeah. Like don't really smother yourself. You just kind of like
yeah. Don't smother yourself. Yeah.
But like you're breathing through the sponge. And I was like, okay, that's just not right. And I just come to a dead stop, turn around, and before I even get back in my house, I'm on the phone with my primary.
Yeah.
And so I see him the next day. He listens to my heart. He doesn't really, hear anything, but he puts me on this Holter monitor.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the next 24 hours, I just went and did regular stuff. I even worked out with it.
Yeah.
Didn't miss a workout.
Yeah.
So I went back the next day, and they, had this long printout showing the my cardiac rhythm, my heart rate. And they're like, yeah, there's some irregular heart rhythms in here, and we're going to refer you to a cardiologist because since they're regular, you need a cardiologist now.
Yeah.
So they referred me to a cardiologist, went and saw him a few days later. And he said, so what you have is a myocarditis, which we're assuming is brought on by a virus because you don't have a family history, so it's not, genetic.
And there's been nothing pre-diagnosed, no problems.
Exactly.
Anything before this.
I was an athlete. I was doing sports every year of my life.
Yeah.
So it's like, but the thing is, it's not uncommon for young black males to have heart issues even when they are healthy.
Yeah.
If anything, that could actually make them more prone.
Okay.
But I had this viral myocarditis, which is inflammation of the cardiac tissue brought on by a virus.
Okay.
And it's not official, but I know that it was the same the virus that causes strep. I'd gotten strep in college twice my sophomore year.
Yeah.
And so I would say that the timeline kind of added up to that. So it was just, that had to be, because the virus that causes strep has the ability to infiltrate cardiac tissue.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Irreversible damage, yeah. So and it does damage, but irreversible, because cardiac tissue doesn't regenerate. And so, and then, that became my advocacy for, stem cell research.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like,
yeah. Make sure.
I need some stem cells now, please.
Yeah, yeah.
But it really, as time went on, I was able to still work out. I was still able to go to the gym, run. But, it was right after I graduated is when I started, things started to
really started
to succumb to the disease a little bit more.
Yeah.
I was getting out of breath, like running up the stairs just slightly. And then, lifting, it was different. Like, I didn't really get out of breath with lifting, but
any cardiorespiratory or cardiovascular work.
Exactly. Yeah. Something aerobic or anything like that.
Yeah.
That directly affects the heart. And then eventually it started affecting my lifting, starting to burn out earlier.
Yeah, you couldn't get the reps, but weight, all that stuff really didn't bother you. But it was when you were trying to do like a higher rep range.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it was just like not there.
Yeah,
and that's defeating, especially somebody who's been performing since there was a child. Parents really pushing, like, hey, you need to keep yourself in shape. And I imagine you had that mentality.
Mm-hmm.
So now all of a sudden this happens, and then what? Like what happens?
I mean, you kind of, at this point, I'm too in my head that like, once I was, diagnosed with this cardiac, I didn't even want to call it a disease at the point because it was so mild. Like it wasn't debilitating at the time. And I say, okay, this is the worst it's going to get. They put me on 2 prescriptions, 2 medications. And I was like, that's the worst it's going to get.
Yeah, that's fine.
Saw a heart commercial. And I'm like, that's not me. I don't look like that.
Yeah.
Running through fields and flowers and stuff. I don't do that. Like,
and is it also a bit of your ego that's like, I don't have a disease. I'm fine.
You're young. You're in college, and you want you want to be able to participate. And here's the thing: I wasn't like big into partying in college. Like I knew how to have a good time. I think I was lucky for me. I found a balance real quickly. I knew that I wasn't a person that liked going out to loud places all the time.
Yeah.
Where vocal communication is just not a thing.
No, yeah,
you can't talk.
I get it. Yeah, it's like, but it's like, because for some of us, it's like you find that balance early on because you're like, it's not in me to be like the blackout drunk type and to be yelling over people at a club.
I've ever blacked out.
It doesn't feel good. So I could see why somebody who values health to not want to do it.
It's like, how do you not stop? Like,
you really like myself in a blackout. You're like,
I feel like I've had really bad nights and I still remember them, and I'm like, how do you go past that point? Like,
but why would you want to? So it's like for you health is obviously very important to you, but now you have this virus that now is really doing a number on you.
Yeah.
Now how does it progress from here? Because right now you're at this point in your life where you're like, hey, I don't have that disease.
Well,
it's not me.
I didn't really start accepting it until I actually couldn't go to the gym anymore. I had left college, graduated thankfully, because it would have made it harder if I didn't graduate and still. So I got out of college, and I was just like everyone else. I was prospective for a full-time job anywhere I could find, and at the time I found an opportunity with Enterprise.
Yeah.
And also at the time I was with somebody. I was seeing somebody for the past couple of years. And that's worth mentioning because it's stuff like this. It really affects your relationships. And,
huge.
And so I found myself because I was getting more fatigue often. I wasn't getting less sleep. I was getting shortness of breath in my sleep. So sometimes I had to sit up in my sleep because when you lie back, you have at this point you're starting to have congestive heart failure. So the congestion of your heart not being able to pump fluid through, the first place it goes is your lungs.
Yeah.
So you now have edema in your lungs, which makes it harder to breathe. So when you lie back, it's almost like acid reflux. As a matter of fact, before I even graduated college, I remember going to the infirmary at my school, and they diagnosed me with acid reflux because I described the symptoms as such.
Yeah, but it was that.
But it was this instead. And,
Oh, my God.
I would think back, I'm like, how did they not know that? It's supposed to be perfect.
Well, I
And, like,
mean,
that's
a
exactly
young,
what I
healthy
explained. Yeah.
person comes in here, and they're going to be like, hey,
You
man, you
tell
got
them
acid
I'm
reflux.
lifting, I'm working out.
You look the way that you do,
and I was
let's be
competing in
honest.
physique shows, too. I was like, I got my pro card, and
Yeah.
that was all while, the symptoms were still mild.
Yeah.
But,
They're like, here, have a Tums. You're like, oh, thanks, man. Yeah, here, have this
And
Tums.
the one they gave me was pretty good.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
better than what
Was it the orange one? The orange
It
one's
was like
good.
orange.
The orange one
It
is
was
good.
really good.
Yeah, see,
You chew
you know. Holy shit, maybe I have
like,
that. Maybe I have
why don't I
that.
just snack on these?
Yeah, yeah. I just think it's like it's so to see it like slowly progress, and then to see some of the pictures. I'll put up the pictures of you, in there, because I think they're just so shocking to come from, like, what you're saying is like, I don't have that, and then to be like, well, then now all of a sudden, sitting up or laying back is terrible. I mean, was it scary, like, when you first started to have that happen? Like, I can't breathe, like, when I go to sleep.
It wasn't scary to the point where I couldn't breathe. Like, it was just to the point where, like, you're just uncomfortable and you can't get to sleep.
Yeah.
So you end up having a bad night's sleep. Eventually, your body just says, okay, we have to sleep no matter what.
Yeah.
Sometimes you find relief. Sometimes it goes away. But, the more and more as time went on, it was more frequent. Yeah, it was and then if I did start overexerting myself, I'd start coughing, and then eventually I'd start coughing up fluid with, like pink fluid and then eventually blood.
And that's blood. Is that just blood tissue from the lungs? It's just like tissue around the lungs.
I don't think it's from the lungs. No,
Yeah.
I think that would be really bad news. I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it was. I think it was just the fluid from retention from edema.
Ugh.
So yeah, whatever my lungs was catching on, that my heart was
not doing
not
well.
pumping through.
Yeah, not doing well.
Yeah, that's the reality of it. Let's say you would have basically pneumonia-like symptoms
Okay.
at this point, because with heart failure, you also can have fever and chills.
Uh-huh.
And so, one time I was brought to the hospital, and this is like as it begins to progress.
Yeah.
I was brought to UConn, actually. And, actually, it was after, so it was a weird night, actually. The person I was seeing, my car was parked in front of their house, and it was a manual transmission. It was a little shiny red Jetta.
Yeah.
And it was cold at the time, which, definitely didn't help with my breathing. So.
And not good for Volkswagens either.
Yeah, exactly. So it slipped out of gear, and it rolled back in the driveway, and it almost rolled down a hill. Like,
yeah.
I was like, all right, no more car.
Yeah.
But it like caught itself on the hill, so I needed a tow truck to come and pull it out.
Yeah.
From the stress running back and forth inside their house and whatnot, I just I started getting the chills. I'm like, I'm going to go home. I'm not feeling well. I feel like the flu. And I'm telling you, these were the chills that I've never had before. Like, eventually I ended up finding out that I had like 107-degree fever once I got to the hospital. I mean, that's
like almost near death, man.
Yeah, it wasn't comfortable. Like, I was uncontrollably shaking I had the heat blasting. I didn't want to leave my car because I didn't want
to go outside
to get into my room.
Yeah.
And I eventually got to my room, and I covered myself with my blanket. I surrounded myself with a space heater, and the chills were just still there. And and at this point, I'm coughing really, really hard. I'm on the phone with my girlfriend because she was worried for me, and I just couldn't even talk to her because I just kept coughing and coughing. I hang up. I tell her I'm gonna be fine. I go to my bathroom. I start coughing up blood in my sink and whatnot. And then luckily my brother shows up, because at this point I'm like, I'm just having a coughing fit. Like, I should just
you don't know what to do.
I honestly, I don't know if that's what I was thinking at the point. I didn't know. I guess I wasn't thinking clearly.
Yeah.
Obviously. But my oldest brother, Martin, shows up. And he's like, I think this might be related to your heart. I think we should go to the hospital. And he was right. Yeah.
And it ended up being. So now you're coughing up blood.
Mm-hmm.
Your brother comes in. You got 107-degree temperature. They bring you to the hospital, and so now what happens?
Go to the hospital. Diagnosed with pneumonia-like symptoms. And then comes one of the most painful moments of my life. physically.
Yeah.
And so part of the workup to start eliminating things that they're now suspecting that is heart failure, they start also eliminating things. So they start checking for certain diseases.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, they wanted to check for leukemia.
Okay.
And the way they do that is through a bone marrow biopsy, which is at least one of the ways they do it. But for me, it was a bone marrow biopsy.
That's the way they did it.
Yep. And that they took from my upper pelvis, so like lower back.
Yeah.
Oh man, right there in the hospital bed, they do it. They don't bring you to a room or anything.
Yeah, they're just like, hey, here you are.
They, local anesthetic, and then the way if it's
just drill into you.
Yeah. They start with an incision. They I think it's like an introductory port that they put in.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
We're going to cut your back. It's an introductory port.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh, this is going to be great.
The incision, and then they put the, I want to call it like a tube-like thing. I don't know what these tools are, but then eventually it comes a drill that they go in, and then what they do is they take a long needle that pulls the marrow out, and man, like I had to grip my nurse's hand so hard.
That's got to be so painful.
I hurt her, but I didn't.
yeah. You're like, I didn't hurt her.
But my lips were purple. Easily one of the most painful experiences of my life. Like I think that probably was a blackout. That was probably the experience time I blacked out.
Well, that's a hell of a way to black out. It's not Goldschlager. It's an access port in my ass. That they're drawing stuff from. I mean, that's terrible.
But like now it's like. Looking back, I'm like, dang, I got to experience that I have high tolerance for pain now.
Yeah, at least Yeah. Sometimes that's good and bad, having a higher tolerance for pain. Because one, when you are in actual pain, then you can't, you're like, oh, I'm fine. And then they're like, no, you're not fine. And then you're like, oh, okay. I thought I was fine. So like high tolerance of pain sometimes can be a good and a bad thing. Because I've done it too, where I've been like, no, I'm fine. They're like, dude, you tore your arm. Especially your arm's torn.
And especially when your adrenaline's pumping too. So.
Exactly.
Yep.
So they deemed out. They just go, hey, this isn't what it is.
Yeah. No leukemia. Which
go ahead.
That would have been it.
Yeah.
Because leukemia would definitely cause heart failure, and then just tons of other problems. Like you look back at all these tests. Like another test I had to wait for was HIV.
Yeah.
And that was like,
it's like
you don't know where to go. I was like frozen in time.
Any dude,
a week for that,
bro. Any dude that gets tested for it, we're just like, okay, what did I do? You're like
exactly
a couple years ago. No,
that's exactly right.
She's fine.
And you're in college, and you're just like,
bro. Everybody, every guy, every person does that. It's not just it's girls too, I imagine, but dudes are just like, I mean, I only know because I'm a dude, so I'm just always like, oh man. This is terrible. But then you're like, oh, you're fine. You're like,
exactly.
Oh.
Yeah,
sweet.
But I mean, it's still important to get yourself tested.
It is.
That's such an important conversation.
Yeah.
I agree.
So then, as far as with, now what do they do with your heart though? Were they just like? So
at this point, they're monitoring my heart because they released me right before New Year's Eve. And I'm like looking forward to it. I'm like, party.
Yeah. No.
I really just wanted some normalcy.
Yeah.
Apart from like going to the hospital and stuff. And the holidays were coming up, and make it through the holidays, and I'm trying to line myself. So spring was like spring was like probably the next like eventful part of this whole journey.
Yeah.
Because through that, I got out of the hospital, but then ended up going back into the Yukon to get the pacemaker.
Okay. So now you're on a pacemaker.
Yep. So now I got the pacemaker because they are like, you are in heart failure.
Yeah.
And you got to get this. So.
And now that's under your skin?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and the crazy thing is during this time, like when it was warming up, actually like shortly before I ended up going into the hospital for the long haul, I went to a auto parts store, and when I got there, I'd gotten out of my car, and like I thought I had just stood up too fast because it started off as like a head rush, and then I'm walking in, I'm like, dang man, I was like probably sitting down for too long, and then head rush is getting stronger and stronger as I'm getting to the counter, and then like I didn't want to go to the counter, but I didn't want to go to the counter instinctively. I knew exactly where I wanted to go to get a product, and my body just takes me to the counter because something's not right.
Yeah.
And I get to the counter, and I just lean on the counter. I just look at the guy, And he's like, can I help you? And I'm just like, and like, I want to say I need help, but like, I still at this moment, I didn't want to admit it. Like, I wanted to just be like, I'm like, I just want to lean here for a minute.
Yeah.
And then I just put my head down, and he knew like right away something wasn't right. Cause I didn't look right, but everything started like,
Spinning.
No, it was more like everything got really bright.
Yeah.
And then like everything was kind of like loud for a second. And there was like an ambulance right up the street that came right down.
Cause you passed right out.
I didn't fully pass out.
But it was,
But it was nearing
there.
that. Like, I think I just like had like, I think I was able to like talk myself through it or something, but like, or my heart was able to power through is what it was, because I was slipping into heart failure.
Yeah.
I got back up and I was just like, okay, all right. Whew, a little bit out of breath. Ambulance people show up, paramedic and whatnot. And they're like, they put me in the back of the ambulance, and they're looking over and they're like, yeah, your heart isn't looking good at all.
Yeah. And
I'm like, oh, wow. I'm like, yeah, okay. And then so they say, they're like, yeah, we should, we'd want to come and monitor you at, here's hospital. I'm like, I'm going to deny that, right? And so, yeah, they're like,
you denied the
are
ride?
you sure? And I'm like, yeah, like, I'm like thinking like if my parents find out, they're going to have to fly in from Florida. It's going to be this whole thing.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, yeah.
You're not thinking clearly,
I'm like,
though,
I
do you
can
think?
understand you. I can speak. I'm fine. Like,
yeah.
I'm just going to go sit in my car and just go home. I should have went to the hospital, man.
Yeah.
I was supposed to see my friend that night because that was the other thing I was looking forward to. He was in town he was in New York. So I wanted to see him that same night. I went and sat in my car for like 25 minutes. And then I was like, all right, maybe I just need some food. Mm-hmm. I go into the Panera Bread that's nearby.
Yeah.
And I just sit next to the fireplace.
Yeah.
Because my body was so cold.
Yeah. I
just sat next to that in the fireplace, and they probably thought I was a homeless person or something. Because
dude, you're sitting in a Panera Bread.
I didn't order
next
anything.
Yeah.
I just like
no broccoli and cheddar soup, dude. Come on.
I just sat there and fell asleep, and I kept telling myself, I'm gonna get some food because it's just probably weird that I'm looking. And I started falling asleep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, your heart is not.
I was out. I was
going out of whack.
Yeah,
man.
my whole body was like, why the fuck did you go to that hospital?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Yeah.
And eventually, I get the energy to get back to my car, go see my friend, and I didn't eat anything for the next day or so, and then
it just wasn't going to come down. It just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, my body's just like, you shouldn't take out the hospital. Like,
yeah.
And so I end up just staying in my room, living in my room, not wanting to go up and down the stairs because that meant like exerting yourself.
And fear, probably.
Yeah,
You're probably out of fear of like making that happen again and being in an embarrassing situation, or embarrassing in the sense of like being in the middle of an AutoZone or auto parts store and, honestly, almost passing out.
Honestly, it may be like shortly after I probably felt embarrassed, but like after, no, it's like reality. Like,
well, no, I know now. I mean, you're probably like, hey, man, that's what was going to happen.
Yeah, you're just not wanting to relive that.
You're young, you're in the moment. You're just like, dude, that sucked. But now you're like, come on, what was the option? Your heart is just like, yeah, but
exactly,
this ain't going to happen.
Exactly right.
Yeah. So then, what's the turning point to know that now, the heart that you have is no longer going to be the heart that you are going to have for the rest of your life?
So
when do you get that?
Yeah, that was so by at this point, parents are home because they're snowbirds, and they have the pacemaker. It was one day, I remember, it was a nice day too. I just wanted to sleep.
Yeah.
I like every time I would get up in the morning, I would sit on the side of my bed, not do anything. And my mom, I think, just hated to see me not be doing anything. She would try to like give me chores to do and stuff, and I'm like,
do laundry.
Why would you give me chores? I can't. Like, but she wanted to see me doing something, so I would literally just go down and like to the next room and just sit somewhere. And then she's like, here, let's go for a walk. And I had seen my cardiologist a day or so before, so they had my weight down and everything. One of the things that, as a heart failure patient, you have to monitor your weight in case you have a sudden weight gain or loss. Usually weight gain from the congestive heart failure, so you're retaining more fluid over time.
Okay.
And I went for a walk with my mom, and I just couldn't even make it down halfway our street. And I was like, there's a hill coming up here, and I'm not coming back if we get get to the point. You have to go get the car and come back.
Yeah. Well, I
So,
mean, if things
yeah,
aren't
it
happening,
really-
they're happening.
So we turn around, come back, and then she's my mom's concerned. She's a mom. Calls my doctor, says, and he tells her to have me weigh myself. I'm like 6-7 pounds overweight since the last like day and a half that I saw my cardiologist. She's like, and he says, okay, yeah, that's way too much that you can gain in that period of time. You need to come into the hospital.
So it's the fluid.
The fluid retention.
Yeah, okay.
Major indicator. So, at this point, there was nothing else indicative on, like, if you could look at me and see. So my ankles weren't, swelling or anything like that. But he says, you need to come to the hospital. And I'm like, no more doctor's appointments. And no, you're trying to swindle me.
Yeah.
I'm hitting the gym later today. You can't stop me.
Yeah, but your gym sessions? Yeah,
No
but
gym
okay.
At
Yeah.
this point.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, at this point, I'm not even working. Yeah. I was prospective to work for that rental company, Enterprise, actually.
Yeah.
And the way they had it structured is that you have 3 days to 3 days for the managerial trainee program, whatever they called it. And it's 3 days of this intensive, which wasn't using classroom training, basic stuff.
And you couldn't even do
I
that.
didn't even focus in it. I barely focus.
Yeah.
I showed up and I just didn't even want to be in a suit. I'm like trying to give a presentation, and I'm good at giving presentations. They probably thought I was super nervous.
Yeah.
And now I feel insulted.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, I wasn't nervous.
It was
I knew
my
what I was doing.
It was my heart.
Yeah,
It was my heart,
I
guys.
really couldn't. Fuck,
Yeah.
I'm sweating. I couldn't stand. I literally couldn't stand.
Yeah.
And then that, and try to give a presentation. So the stresses and all that just compounded. It was like the worst I've ever been.
Yeah.
And at the end of the training, they move you onto your respective office somewhere near your home, which would be nice. And I called out sick on my first day.
Yeah. Because you couldn't.
I couldn't believe it. I was just like, I have to call out sick. I can't even get out of bed. I
Yeah.
had my clothes laid out and ready, and I called out sick, and it just, obviously didn't look good, but if I did, I probably would have died.
It's a good reason. It's not like they don't know that. You don't even know that yet, right? So you don't even know that yet.
So
then when you go in,
So I go into the hospital.
back to the hospital.
Hospital. My mom's the one who basically got me to go to the hospital. I just was
Yeah, you didn't want to go. Yeah, hospital sucks.
So I get to the hospital, and they put me in a bed, and then they put me in this weird, like, I guess they was like busy or something, but they put me in a room alone with like a bunch of like, it's basically like a utility closet.
Yeah.
It was cozy and
Yeah.
quiet.
Yeah.
So
You're like
I
Harry
liked it.
Potter. You're like Harry
I could
Potter with a heart
rest.
problem. You're just like
Just
underneath
like-
the stairs. You're just like, yeah, this is great.
My own room.
Yeah, this is nice.
But it was, I was finally able to, for some reason, I remember being in that room, and I just remember just being quiet.
Yeah.
Like, I can lie down and rest.
Relax.
Okay, and so a doctor comes in. It's a doctor I've seen before, so I recognize him. And he's like, so yeah, it's looking like your fluid retention's moved on from your lungs to your liver. And so that's just, it doesn't really matter. Like, the fact that it's anywhere but just your lungs means that your heart failure has gotten worse. So we have to admit you. And I'm like, great. So I'm thinking, like, okay, I'll be here for like 2 weeks or something, because that's like what has been standard every time I've been admitted, for my pacemaker, for the time I was coughing up blood,
Yeah.
yada, yada, yada. And so he goes, and so the other thing is, with the condition of your heart, the fact that it's deteriorating outside the hospital, at this point, your heart has irreversible damage. You can't go on without the heart you have now. So we'll have to transplant you. And so I'm like, let's get it done.
What do you think? What does somebody think when that happens? Like, what did you think that, hey, this is gonna be another 2 weeks? Like you're saying though, like you thought it was gonna be 2 weeks.
I thought it was gonna be like 2 weeks. So this is like the first time, my first lesson in organ and tissue transplantation.
Yeah.
Because after this, you learn firsthand exactly how the process goes.
Yeah.
I knew that there was a waiting list.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that, just by, I knew that it was a thing. I'm like, oh, I'm an organ donor, which means that it's probably like everyone else is an organ donor.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that it came down to blood type and size of the donor and specific antibodies, timing.
Yeah.
And then just looking at, the general wait times for, you're looking 2, maybe 4 years for a heart. I mean, kidneys.
2 to 4 years?
Yeah. I mean, and then kidneys, and it also depends geographically, but that's a national average.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kidneys, easily 5+ years. Yeah. A lot of kidneys going around, but just,
But it's geographically where it is. Yeah.
And diabetes is just so common.
Yeah. And but for a heart, does he tell you that? Now, when did he tell you?
No,
that?
He didn't tell me all that. He was telling me that I needed a heart transplant. He was giving me the cold cut,
You need a heart transplant.
That's pretty much the way I'd like to be told.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We need a transplant. But my response to that was not what you think, like, oh my God, I can't believe it. It was really, my response to that was optimistic because I thought it was a lot simpler than I had expected it to be.
Yeah. You're like, let's go.
Let's go.
Hearts. Yeah. Give me one.
The old one, it's just like car parts.
Yeah.
It's not working and put it back in, you're good to go.
You're like, I change the tire of my Jetta all the time. Yeah. That's that what you
They
kind of.
make it look so easy in movies,
yeah,
right?
it's true. That's true. They're like, we have it in this igloo cooler, and they get it over.
That's the discussion not being had. Is part of the process is in what it takes for this to happen.
Yeah, what takes to get the igloo cooler. And how you can
be a part of it too.
Yeah.
So he tells me, you need a heart transplant. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. And so they admit me, and the first thing they do is they put me on a diuretic. I swear to you. Especially apart from everything else of being a heart transplant patient, you just have such a fascination, appreciation for the human body. They put me on diuretics. I peed easily 2 hours in the next 2 liters in the next like 6 hours.
Because of all the fluid and
retention.
everything. Yeah,
I never knew that was like inside
a thing.
Me.
Yeah,
and
you're
then,
just like, where's this coming from?
And you know what? When the fluid was all gone, I was like, I feel so much better. Like,
I feel pretty good.
I called the nurse. I was like, nurse,
I could leave.
Exactly.
I could leave, right?
Like, I feel
She's
great.
Like, no.
I was like, I don't know. Think about me leaving. No.
Yeah. No.
You are in the ICU. Like, I'm in the ICU at this point. There's no just.
You can't just go. Yeah. You're like, no. I'm good.
They have to have meetings and stuff.
Give me the probability of me leaving. 0. Okay. Just get back in the bed. Yeah.
Did you get a heart transplant?
Yeah.
No. So that was the plan.
Yeah.
ICU for heart transplant. Me being me, communications grad from out of college, starts communicating with everyone, get to know the place, who's who, and who we should look out for. Everyone's really cool, especially with like what they have to do for work, what the things that they see. It's really now I have this special place in my heart for nurses.
Well, but it's also like I'm around a lot of people in like the medical field, and you have we have a dark sense of humor. Like we do. Like we have a dark sense of humor.
You'll grow a dark sense of humor, yeah.
You will when terrible things happen to you, and they happen to you, and you can either make it like the victim and run away from it and make it this terrible thing, or you could be like a lot of, at least I have, and from what I know of you and how we've interacted, we laugh about a lot of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
we say
exactly.
Crazy shit.
It,
yeah. And it's because we appreciate it. And nurses, darkest sense of humor. Mm-hmm. Doctors, even worse.
Oh my God.
And it's like
the nasty stories they tell me.
It's like insane.
Yeah.
But I don't want my doctor like, I don't know if you want to know. I don't want that. I want a guy that's going to joke around about it.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're pretty much, they've diagnosed that you need a new heart.
Yep.
That you have to, like, this is what's going to happen.
End stage heart failure.
Stage heart failure. Yeah. So now how long now are you in the hospital for?
All right. So I was at this point, it was 2015. I was in there, I believe I went in there in May. Yeah. That's, if I'm remembering correctly. It's already been 6 years. It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I ended up being there for just a little bit over 4 months. Oof. And and then when you gain perspective, people are there for much longer. They never leave.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. 4 months though.
4 months
in the hospital.
though, like when you're supposed to be out of college and supposed to be exploring the world, doing all that stuff. It's weird. So me being me, growing up as someone who's moved around a lot, learned to adapt, especially socially.
Mm-hmm.
Going from South Florida and then going up to Minnesota.
Yeah.
Like, you adapt.
So
I befriended the nurses because the first thing I wanted to make sure I had were just rapport, clout, so you can get sneak a popsicle when there aren't any left.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not really, but
yeah,
you just want to gain that. You want to have the trust. You want to be able to put your trust in these people, so you got to get to know them and get to know them fast. And I guess it's just basically advice for anyone who finds themselves going into the ICU, because it's a different world when, especially if you're doing this for the first time, putting your trust in people you've just met, like for them to do so many things, is very humanizing.
Yeah.
When you just have to just accept that. I mean, if you end up being as sick as I was, you kind of just will.
Yeah.
Because you're desperate to be better. But yeah, moving into the ICU, you're surrounded by death.
Yeah.
It's watching families show up to come and say goodbye to a loved one. Nurses, they just part of their job. So you're seeing, a lot of sadness, but you're also seeing a lot of nurses. You see your nurse dealing with one family who's not having a good day, and then just turn around and go to another family. Like the other family just, I don't want to say doesn't exist, but the fact that they're able to just switch that,
their situation
gears so easily.
Yeah.
And so to me, seeing that is like, okay, so I was right. Good thing I didn't go to medicine school or anything like that.
Well, you get to see them change gears and not drag somebody else's situation into somebody else's life situation.
Yeah.
Because it's such a sensitive situation. And now, are you worried at any point throughout this 4-month stint of your own mortality? Like, are you thinking of your own mortality? Are you like, oh my God?
I am.
I'm gonna, are you like, oh boy?
I think it was the optimist in me that, they say it's always good to be, be optimistic when you're going through something like that. And I think there was just such an overwhelming part of that about myself. And I kept telling myself, even my best friend, I actually had this discussion with him recently. I asked him, were you ever worried? And he said, no, the way you described it and just knowing who you are, I spent all this time I dedicated to fitness in college. I do wonder though, what would happen if I was, typical college student, succumb to the social life, partying, drinking a lot, didn't take care of, ate whatever.
Overweight, really unhealthy.
Turned out as well.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, there's something to say with you being in good physical condition and also knowing pain and pushing yourself through really uncomfortable situations could kind of prep you a little bit better than the person who has chosen easy path, the couch over the bench, type of mentality.
When you live that lifestyle, you don't have the self-empowerment to, self-empower you when that's all that's left, when you don't have a bench press to, turn to and, let out your, although, there's that picture of me doing push-ups in my ICU room, which my doctor said, do not do. You have 4 ports inside of you right now, and you think that's a good idea? And I'm like, it's not a good idea, but man, I got to do something.
Yeah, I'm going crazy.
This turned into me skateboarding around on my IV pole.
Yeah.
No joke.
Yeah.
Don't recommend. Not,
yeah, don't do it.
I did it. And I just did it. And so it was just.
The push-ups picture.
They even upgraded my pole to have nicer wheels, so it wasn't as
squeaky.
Loud.
Yeah, squeaky. They're like, yeah, we'll give you a more quiet one.
But they let me be me, which is just astounding for them. I can't believe they put up with that bullshit.
The push-up picture is extremely empowering. It's very moving.
One of the
to
first
see.
to go viral.
I've never I don't think I've ever seen anything or had a response to. I just looked and I was like, holy shit. I think I might have said that out loud. I was just like, wow, holy shit. That's just such an incredible picture.
I knew it was the right thing to post because there's the thing about empowerment, motivation, inspiration. You see those words fly around on Instagram, social media all the time. Mm-hmm. #motivation, inspiration.
Yeah.
It's a real thing, and it literally is the greatest example of what you give is what you get in return.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that by posting that, people would see them holy shit.
Yeah.
we don't have any excuses anymore. Self-empowerment.
Exactly.
And then I saw what people were saying underneath that, and I'm just fed off of that over and over.
How many get your asses up and get to the gym did you see underneath your photo? Like, I would be like, dude, you have nothing to bitch about. Get your ass up.
It was like, I have no excuses anymore.
That's got to feel good. That's got to feel good.
It did, and like I knew that I was still myself.
Exactly. Like, it's got to feel good, and what you were doing is, inspiring others. Now, how do you leave after 4? Like, where do you go? How do you leave the hospital after 4 months?
I've tried. All right, so I've tried. The skateboard thing on my IV pole. I've tried skateboarding as fast as I could out the doors before they close. I've tried dressing as a nurse to get out of the hospital. I'm just playing.
Yeah. They're just like, all right, get back here. Yeah. Hey there, little cutie. You're like, hey. And they're like, whoa.
Just bring the IV pole to floor 1.
Yeah.
Well, in my case, there was no getting better.
Okay.
Cardiac tissue doesn't regenerate. There's no getting better. You need a heart transplant. But there is one other way you can. So maybe like half a month into my stay at the ICU, when they're doing all the workup, after they do all the workup, they had to do all this stuff. They had to check my teeth, my breathing, to make sure that I was even healthy enough to get to the surgery. So it's one thing needing a heart transplant. You got to pass all these tests
to know that you can even get there.
Thankfully, I was working out and brushing and flossing, apparently.
Yeah.
And breathing well.
Mm-hmm.
So they do all those tests, and they also want to introduce you to all the possibilities. Like, they want to give you as much information as possible. And through that, these people, these representatives from Medtronic, who actually come back in the story later, they show up with these brochures. And at this point, this is like when a lot of people are coming to your room and leaving. So again, there's no privacy. If you're an ICU patient, got to get used to it. There's no getting used to it. I'm like, oh God, there's more people coming in my room. Like, I just want to I have my PlayStation and stuff set up, and I'm like, just trying to play some Last of Us. So they come into my room, and they want to talk to me about this thing that, might be an option for you. And again, I'm thinking back to like seeing commercials of heart failure medications and all the older people.
Yeah.
I don't want to say old people, but older people that didn't look like me.
Yeah.
That were just, I didn't relate to. I'm like, I don't look at me. This is the worst that it's going to get. I work out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
it's fine.
They're showing me the LVAD, the ventricular assist devices. And I forgot to bring my little trophy with the one that had it.
Oh, that's fine.
All right. Well,
yeah.
That was sort of cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was this technology that's been around basically since the 60s and 70s. I want to say the 50s, actually. But, before then, you had to be in the hospital to have it. They said, a lot of people, when they have heart failure, they, parts of their heart, especially their left ventricular, which is considered the most, the more important part of the heart, will start to fail just like yours is right now. And there's this machine. We'll put it inside you, and it'll help you. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's terrible. But you have to wear but they said you have to wear the computer and battery packs, which was just, it was unflattering. And I'm thinking back to how naive I was. And I'm like, Andrew, this is like, if me now could go back and like hop into my brain, I'm like, Andrew, this is life-saving technology. Pay attention.
Yeah. And you're like, I don't like the battery packs around my belt.
That's the one thing I hate the most about me. It's just my attitude, like part of my attitude back then. And so I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. I won't need this stuff. Like, get it out of my face. Like, I'm going to get my transplant. And so I may have just jinxed myself at that point. That was the test. That was like, you need to admit that there's something wrong with you. Look at you. You're in the hospital. You're tethered to the bed. Like, I can't leave unless they come and switch the ports out of another machine that allow me to walk around. And so living in the hospital, I have friends come and go. I consider myself very lucky, given my situation, where other people, the patients, are so sick that they're asleep or just sedated.
Yeah.
Families, they just come in, try to keep them company in it. I'm awake. I'm playing PlayStation. They brought me little flat screen TVs, and this is why the best nurses in the world.
Yeah.
They're literally treating me like a kid at the children's hospital.
Yeah.
Kids at the children's hospital are jealous.
Yeah. Like, yeah, because you're playing PlayStation,
I'm playing
hanging
PlayStation.
out. Yeah.
I mean, they probably got really cool things too. But they bring me the TV, and I'm able to chat and game with my friends. The Wi-Fi was strong enough to support that. Can you believe that?
Yeah, I believe it.
And
I mean, they want you to,
and it was the
be
guest
comfortable.
Wi-Fi. I wasn't using the hospital Wi-Fi. But I had all this stuff to be comfortable, to make me feel normal, and I was so thankful for it. I still am. But gets to a point where I am, despite all the amazing care that the nurses were giving me, the living in the future, all the medication, the medicine that we have, all the technology, and my heart was still failing, and a heart didn't come in time. So one night I remember just being a little bit uncomfortable, and all's been moving smooth, but all of a sudden I get this shortness of breath. It's just mild though. I'm not like gasping for air in my hospital bed, but like I recognize the symptoms, and I'm like, I haven't had that in a while, so I should call the nurse, and they're like, okay, well, we'll look at this for you. They, take a closer look at me, and, don't really say anything. Next day, come into my room. It's like 5 nurses, like the nurses and like a couple doctors. And they're like, all right, so your condition has deteriorated. And, it's just at this point where you were like maxed out on dobutamine and milrinone, which are the 2 drugs that were keeping my heart beating and beating strong. But they're just like, it's not going anywhere. So we're gonna have to VAD you. Mm-hmm. And I already knew what that meant. And I just had to take that in for a minute. And there were tears shed, because that's not the route that I wanted to take. I didn't want any interruptions. By getting the VAD, that means that, I have to go undergo open heart surgery that I wasn't ready for.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing, in the ICU, I was actually trying to prepare myself. So I guess, now looking back, I handled it pretty damn well.
Yeah.
I didn't try to fight nobody.
Yeah. But I mean, hearing that news was shocking.
It's just still shocking. It really sucked. You weren't as strong as you thought you were.
Well, I mean, I think that even though you were there for that, long period of time.
Yeah.
I mean, how ready does anybody, when somebody says hey, there's this surgery and is it risky? It's a fairly risky surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just, what are you supposed to do? Just go, oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. For the heart transplant, I was looking forward to the heart transplant. I wanted that.
Because that's the new beginning.
Exactly.
Right. That's the pinnacle. That'd be this is the new beginning.
I've looked at other stories. Most of the other stories I saw, but I guess I didn't take it in much. I remember, there's one guy who had a heart transplant in the same place as me, he was in the same room right down the hall from me years before. And, I watched his story, and he was just like me. He was still up and talking. And I'm like, and he got his heart while waiting in the hospital. And I'm like, I'll just be like him.
But yeah, I mean, not every story is the same.
Get my own path, man.
Yeah.
And man, I'm so glad I got that path, because now arises AJ, the guy with the mechanical heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
The heart in the backpack story.
Yeah, which is how I knew you.
This is where,
because that's how I met you.
This is where we go Instagram viral.
Yeah. So, I mean, I met you, and I saw, and I was like, what's going? I remember I was like, what's up with that? And I remember my buddy was saying, he's like, oh, that's AJ. I'm like, and then I saw a video of you.
Who the hell is AJ?
Yeah. Well, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what you were carrying around. So my sister had she had ulcerative colitis, so she had all sometimes bag and all this other stuff she doesn't have anymore. But I mean, carrying around stuff or something was on her, where, and you couldn't really tell, but you could tell if you kind of knew. But in your case, you have this thing you're carrying around, and it's, what is it? It's the batteries that you didn't want to take, you didn't want to carry around. What is it, a car battery? It's just a giant battery.
It was awesome.
Was it heavy? You want bicep curls?
No, it was only 8 pounds, 7 pounds.
That's still pretty heavy. That's heavy to carry around.
I guess for some people.
Yeah, no, not
for
me.
some people.
Not me. Over there. Yeah.
But it was, it took some getting used to.
Yeah.
It's
anytime you move.
It's like that movie where the the little cute animal shows up, and the bigger animal is unwelcoming of it, but eventually warms up to it.
Yeah,
Eventually grow a relationship with your bad.
With your bad, yeah.
Because you have to take care of it. There's this whole thing that when I'd gotten the VAD, first of all, in about a couple of days, I began to realize like how much better this was without having a failing heart.
Yeah.
Even without getting the heart transplant, I immediately started like, this isn't bad.
Yeah.
Like, you guys did a good job inventing this. Like,
yeah. Because you felt better? Did you feel better with it?
Yeah, instantly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then again, you get to see like, okay, well, that's what happens when everything is a little bit working a little bit better in the human body, how sensitive the human body is.
Yeah.
But at this point, I have to deal with taking blood thinners.
Mm-hmm.
And the first, introducing my body to that was terrible. I had like a 2.5 hour nosebleed.
Mm.
And they also had to do these dressing changes for the vat itself.
And the bottom, yeah.
Yep.
That's
so
funny.
you'll see a lot of pictures where I'm like shirtless and you'll have like there's a patch there.
And there's a tube. There's a tube going in there?
Yeah, it's called your drive line.
Okay.
So that drive line is the means of communication for the VAD, the pump, to the computer.
Does this go up and through then to the heart?
Yep, to the apex of the heart, so the bottom of the heart, where the left ventricle sits.
Yeah.
And then that will outflow that goes through an outflow cannula up to the top of the heart to the ascending aorta, and then
to the rest of the body. Yeah.
And so, so my body wasn't getting any blood without it. In the first place is your lungs, and so.
And now with this,
no edema, no fluid retention. You have to take blood thinners, and sometimes I had to give myself injections. But guess what? I got to go home.
Yeah.
So you get a little trade there. You get to be discharged from the hospital. So that means that because you don't require intensive care, you actually move down on the list.
Okay.
I was mad about that.
That would kind of piss you off, yeah.
Yeah, I was mad.
So then, you have this thing, and now how it's such a different change in lifestyle again for you, because you go from being very healthy all of a sudden to finding out you have a problem, then all of a sudden being in the hospital 2 weeks, then getting out of the hospital, then going back in for 4 months, and then getting out again. Now you got this, battery you're carrying around, this thing, and how you have to keep it.
It's like I'm leveling up.
Yeah. But then you're going down on the list. So that's pretty much that's a big emotional roller coaster for you. Now, how has that changed your attitude now? Are you more, less apt to talk to people? Are you more shy now? Are you more pissed? Or are you,
At that point, I've become, I've done a lot of thinking in the hospital, because what other can you do besides PlayStation? Hours on PlayStation were nuts.
Yeah.
Do a lot of thinking. And you just kind of say, this is where I am in life.
Mm-hmm.
You have family that are supporting you and keeping you normal in the head, and you got to be grateful for that. You just have to keep accepting your now. I was accepting that I had this thing, connected to my abdomen, and it didn't take long before I just started having fun with it.
Yeah.
Family had to adjust and everything, and I was really eager just for a sense of normalcy and being able to drive again.
Yeah. How long did you have this attached to you? Like, how long was that?
A year and 1 month.
Now, is it a year and 1 month because then after that, do you find out that...
Oh, you just wait a phone call.
Okay, so do you have the number? Do you have a beeper on you? Like, what happened?
Regular phone
just
call.
A regular phone call.
Yeah. I mean, some people still use
Are they just like, they're like, hey, yep, your heart's ready. Like, what did they say?
Yeah.
Is that what they said? Is that what they said? Tell me exactly what they said to you.
The way they did it was, I was actually about to go to the gym.
Yeah.
And, this is... I'm already back to like feeling normal, almost like I'm working out, like I'm actually pretty damn good shape. Like,
yeah. And there's no pre-warning for this heart.
No, technically no.
Yeah.
Actually the first phone call is somewhat of a pre-warning, because the reality is that especially if there's time sensitive or time urgency behind it, they'll let you know early that there's a chance that they found a matching heart.
Okay.
And a lot of times people will get a second phone call saying it didn't match out completely.
Okay. So
but the way they did it was, I was cleaning my room and I was just like, damn, I've had a long day. It's summertime. It's hot. I decided to just like take a quick 20-minute power nap on my bed, which always results in like hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah. It's never 20 minutes.
It's an angry nap. And so as soon as I flopped out of my bed, like as soon as I hit my bed, my phone's buzzing.
Yeah.
And I just pick it up and I put it up to my ear and I'm like, hello. And I look up the phone and I already recognize the number. It's Harvard Hospital. And it's something like medicine change, or like, we need to take you
something
off this medication. Something that's like
pretty frequent
regular
that they do.
You come in and piss in this cup.
Yeah.
I just did that.
Yeah.
Anyway, they call me and they're like, "Hey, Andrew, how are you today?" And I'm like, "I'm doing all right." And they're like, "How do you feel?" And I'm like, "Feel fine. About to go to the gym, actually." And they're like, "Do you feel like you're on top of the world?" That's the one thing that, like I said, I'm like,
I mean,
no.
no,
Like, there's something you're offering, like
no.
a speaking gig or something. And then, and they're like, I said, not really. And they said, well, what if we told you that we have a heart for you? And I'd be like, and I remember I tell you what I said was, I tell you
what they said.
because it was just so funny because my reaction was like, I said, well, how about that? Which is not a natural response from me.
Well, would you look at that?
Yeah. And I said it was such like a monotone because like, and like slowly like.
But then it came.
It was like, it started hitting me like the first time you get high or something.
Yeah.
So over the next few minutes, I call my mom and say, so the hospital says they might have a heart for me. So just kind of like, cause there might be that second phone call. So might be, and they're like, oh my God, my mom was at the grocery store. She told me, and she was there with her sister-in-law and they both were like super excited and they're like, oh my God, we're coming to Connecticut right now. I'm like, no, because if they call
because you don't know,
and they're like,
be a second.
We'll see you soon. And I'm like, well, can't stop them now.
Yeah. And now how soon from the first phone call to the second phone call?
All right. So the time I give you, I went and I was training with, Ron.
I know Ron. Yeah. I love Ron.
I was training with Ron for the time and I was actually looking forward to like months of training with him.
Yeah.
This is like the second week.
Yeah.
And I go to Ron and I just go, hey Ron, so let's get this workout in.
Yeah.
Which was good because I was starting to feel stressed at this point.
Yeah.
Thinking about like what had to happen for this. So I was lucky enough to have like a workout.
An outlet.
Yeah.
To get
so,
in.
and I told Ron and, Ron being the great friend he is, he kind of was just like, that's awesome news. And, he knew I was here to work out. So
he's like, let's deadlift. He's like, awesome news. Let's deadlift. Yeah. I love Ron.
I got to work out him before my freaking heart transplant.
Yeah.
I just think that's so cool.
That's badass.
So I got the workout in, great work, probably the greatest workouts of my life, knowing what was happening. And then there was still some time. I was still waiting on that phone call. So I'm like, I need to go somewhere because like now I'm back to like thinking. I go to my friend's house. His name is Derek. And he lives right down the street from me, has been since like middle school. And he's a nurse. And so I went to his house and they came out. I said to him, I'm like, hey man, what's up? Like I told him on the phone, I was like, hey, I'm coming by, I'm just going to hang out for a little bit. And he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, everything's fine. I'll see you in a minute. He's like, okay, we're going to be ordering a pizza. And I'm like, no, I can't, I won't have any.
Yeah.
Because you gotta fast before
your
major surgery. And so he's like, okay. So I come by, he comes out and he's like, he's already walking because I think he was a little concerned.
Yeah.
And so I just go, hospital called. And he knew exactly what that meant. He's like, he comes and gives me a hug. And then I say the same thing to his mom. His mom gives me a big hug. And I'm like, yeah, let's celebrate with pizza. And I'm like, I can't eat it.
Yeah, because of the fasting. Yeah.
And I was kind of hungry too because I just worked out. But excitement overwhelmed that. And so, I needed something to do. So I go and drive and pick up the pizza with Derek. And that's when I get the second phone call saying, so, there's no rush. Just come in whenever you're ready. Grab whatever you need. You don't need to rush.
And now this is hours after getting the first phone call.
This is probably like 2.5 hours after.
See, that's what a phone call. That's 2 hours of your life where you're like,
where you need
please.
To. So big piece of advice. If you're ever feeling stressed, anxious about something, try to complete a task.
Yeah.
That you have down, clean something.
Yeah,
do something.
Yeah,
it's
work out.
Good to
do some deadlifts with Ron. Yeah.
Oh, some deadlifts.
Yeah, with Ron will definitely help. Yeah. You get that second phone call. The second phone call of probably the phone call you've been waiting for
the official.
What about 2 years now?
Oh, yeah, I mean, if you can call it that. Like,
yeah. I mean, like, but you know what I mean.
For a while, yeah.
For a long time.
I needed a new heart for until it had to be proven. There's a lot of that you have to endure before you can just, get a heart transplant. It's not something that they have on a shelf, something you can just go get.
So these questions are from the Gram, and I think that a lot of them we've kind of already answered, at least one of those, but this I think is probably one of the best questions, best worded questions. What was it that shored up your mental fortitude to push through at your weakest point? Like, what was your weakest point, and what was the mental game that you played with yourself, or like that you actually elevated, throughout that?
I would say that you just can't go it alone.
Yeah.
At some point, I would say luck does come into play, because it's a lot of people won't have the same support system. They won't be surrounded with, great people.
Mm-hmm.
May that be their caretakers, family, or friends. And I would say that my lowest was probably around when I denied that ambulance ride,
Mm-hmm.
because that was, it was a combination of an obviously me not doing well, being sick. Some, people going into action to help me. So the guy calling 911, ambulance coming to come help me. And then just like, this could have, for all I know, going to the hospital that day, they could have like found something, put me on a medication that I would do well. And just like, I could have just kept going on that, with, another medication, and who knows what it could have been. I denied serious help. So
you're saying that that the damage could have not been done already.
Who knows?
Okay. So you're saying it could have been.
I could have, if I had accepted that hospital ride.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have to deal with, the drama. But I end up dealing with it anyway. And even more now.
So now it's like that's a good point, man. It's like, because now do you play that what if game a lot with that before?
All the time.
Do you?
Yeah, I not even play it.
Is it something you struggle with now, or you've accepted?
I'm all about being present in the moment, and from there you are able to remain as emotionless as possible, especially when you need to make an important decision.
Like that.
Yeah, you don't go driving your car when you're in a fit of rage.
Yeah.
Or even super happy necessarily. You want to get on the phone and tell your friend about the promotion you just got, and going driving. That's not a good combination.
Or when you need help, now you're more apt to go.
The person I just interviewed for work on my Instagram Live gave a great message. Shout out to Jess, who actually comes through here.
Yeah, Jess. I love Jess. Yeah.
She said, "Don't make those kind of decisions when you're emotional. Like, you can't. You really can't.
It's huge.
Don't walk into your car dealership when you got a pockets full of money and you're emotionally attached to a car. Buy it. Like,
yeah." Positively charged or negatively charged, you don't want to do that. And I agree with that.
And you got to be able to recognize when that state of, and so really it's really important to, I think that's what allowed me to kind of come out of that deep space, is because I was in a place where I knew I couldn't move as much. It took losing a lot of myself to finally, you cut away all the distractions and see what you're left with. And you're able to say, well, all I have now is the trust I put into these people who are taking care of me, that they don't F up,
Yeah.
transplant the wrong heart, cut the wrong artery or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, you got to be willing to accept that. And then when you do, it's like you're being nice to the world. It's like, oh, well, everything you interact with in the world now, you put those good vibes out, they'll come back to you. It's a true thing. Like, I'm going to try to be nice to it. I'm going to appreciate the sunset that I got to see after I got my transplant. Oh, one of the most, those mornings were just so great. But coming from that dark place, to come out of that dark place, you just have to just sit yourself down and just, like, even if you have to do this in the middle of the day, you just sit there, accept where you are right now, and try to just strip yourself of everything around you and, where are you right now, and just accept that. And then try to and then move forward and be nice on your brain. Like, your brain does so much processing for you, so you're not over emotional, so you're not overstimulated with all the real, dangers and stresses of the world. Appreciate that. And, from there you can start making healthy decisions. You'll be empowered to. And, that's what came out of it. I knew that remaining more, like, if I can be myself as much as I can, I'll get through this. That's where I founded the nonprofit in the ICU, and I'm telling myself, okay, I got actually like letters in the mail from the state, asking for clarification. Are you going to be a 501c3? I was doing that from a hospital bed, and why can't you, you know? And I realized that I could order stuff off of Amazon.
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
was like buying candy
Yeah.
and so I mean that's not really but I proved to myself that I was able to do something. I was building something. I was still bringing awareness to something, and that's just something I wanted to do, you know, growing up, you know.
You were thinking larger than your circumstances and your situation.
Yeah.
Which I think that I can speak from my own experience. When I was younger, somebody said something, and they said it, actually it was only like maybe a couple months ago. And she said, I always knew that you were different. She goes, I remember when you lied, and I know you didn't have any place to go, and you lied about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that you slept outside. Like I knew that you were homeless essentially. And she goes, but you still were trying to like make me happy. And you still were trying to, you know, get a job. You know, you still were trying to like do certain things. And I thought larger of the current circumstances that I was in. And I didn't want it. And I knew that it wasn't me forever. So you sitting there in a hospital bed, you know, with tubes, you know, coming in and out of you doing, you know, push-ups on your chair and stuff, you knew that this was larger than you, that this has the opportunity to be larger than you. And you had the nurses that were taking better care of you, and you were putting trust, and that's a huge deal. And that's a huge lesson to learn, I think, at a young age. I learned it at a very young age, which is probably why I gravitate towards you, you know, and you learned this at a very young age as well, you know, and that's a huge lesson to learn, man.
Yeah, we have to learn these lessons, which gives us a certain power, and our story is our power, because we're able to share our story, our experiences, hopefully lands among the right ears, right pair of open ears, and they start, you know, leading their life to avoid, you know, whether you can call them mistakes or anything. There's like so much that people grasp that I don't even realize from my own speeches, which is why it's important to keep telling your story, because people will tell you what stands out to them, and the things that stand out to them is things that you probably in your whatever you're presenting, you kind of just fly over, but for them it's like
it's monumental. It's such a
it's
huge
just
impact.
Words.
Well, to you, maybe to you, those couple sentences were words, but who are we to say that sentence, those words didn't hit so hard with somebody that they were like, wow. And then that was just, for you, that was just a couple little sentences.
Oh, yeah. Once I realized what just your words can do, what kind of power they hold, man, I ran with that. So you're taking a communications college student and you give him the internet, man. I'm like,
I'm on it.
I did a little bit.
Be great.
We studied some journalism.
Yeah.
And at the point where I realized that, I was like, guy working out with a machine attached to his heart. Media's going to eat this up.
Yeah. You're like, this is going to be great.
Yep. And that opened up some doors. So,
and that's huge. And I knew that would be, you know, this, and we kind of touched on these other questions. Anyway, so I kind of want to close out with the experience with getting that you've got the heart. You wake up, you get that call, and you wake up with this big scar on your chest, which I think looks dope, by the way. I have a thing about scars. I think I'm like, that's dope, you know. And you have this scar, and now are you reminded? Is there a part of you that is reminded? Because, I mean, you got this, you know, you're all, you know, jacked and, you know, annoyingly good looking to me. And, you know, so, you know, then you have this and you have somebody else. Like there's a piece, there's somebody else in there too. This blows my mind. Like as a kid, I didn't even, you're not even on that radar. Now it's like, I think about that stuff all the time. I'm like, holy shit.
The most valuable thing to come out of that, and what I mean valuable is that it can be valuable in a good way and can be, you know, irresponsibly used. So you're making a decision for two people.
Yeah.
So when you go ahead and make sometimes it's I'll make better decisions about what I'm about to eat.
Yeah.
Not as recently, shame.
Yeah.
But it's two people you're thinking about, because I did meet my donor parents. I
Yes.
see that they have grandchildren. And so it's like, okay, so I've been gifted with the ability to second,
Yes.
yeah.
You're like, I want that pizza.
Yeah, and I don't want to call it
All
hesitation
right.
or anything
We
like
won't.
that. But, yes, exactly.
Dude, that's amazing.
So you get that from it. Some people say, like, oh, do you start having dreams of, like,
Yeah.
do you have certain food cravings? And I'm like, it didn't really come that way. Like, when I woke up with the new heart, the first thing I thought was there was something wrong, because I had been without a discernible pulse and blood pressure for the past year.
Yeah.
And before that, it was just super weak.
Yeah. And now,
Man, they say that the heart beats with the strength of when you take a tennis ball and squeeze it with your fist.
Yeah.
That's how hard your heart is working.
Yeah.
I felt that in my fingertips when I woke up.
That's amazing.
They got me on fentanyl and whatever under the sun.
You still felt it.
And I still felt, I was just like serious tremors from the medication, but like I was scared that like they had effed up. I was like, I've been nice. I was nice. I waited.
What did you do?
Put it backwards.
Yeah.
It was the return.
That's so.
It was like
the return of
returning
blood.
to life. Yeah, to parts of my body that didn't feel it for such a long time.
That must be amazing.
Went from turbocharged to naturally aspirated. It's a different feeling.
Dude, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I could feel, like, I don't feel it like that, but I mean, I could imagine.
The best,
wow.
The closest way to describe it is like when you are like watching a movie and you end up in a weird position, your arm or your leg falls asleep. And then, but it's more like not pins and needles, but it's
that initial.
It's all over your body though.
Yeah.
Like it's all over your body. It's like happening in different parts of your body in different times. Like, so it gets overstimulating because it's happening all at once and you're trying to like, now it's in my legs, now it's in my feet, now it's in my shoulder. Like, yeah. And so you're like, wow, this is really like
really weird,
super anxious. So
we've talked about this now. Did you know what your donor looked like and what they were, gender, all that stuff?
Yep. So his name was Donald. Yeah, Donald Smith.
Donnie. Yeah, I would do that all the time. Yeah, I would. I don't know. Yeah, Donnie. Yeah, that's amazing.
And he was in his mid-30s.
Okay.
And like a lot of ways people become organ donors, it was through a car accident, motorcycle accident.
Yeah.
And it was actually negligence of another driver, which is really sad.
That's sad.
And he unfortunately just didn't survive his injuries, and it was he was, I believe he was in the hospital for about a week or so. And then before his condition got worse, and then he just not gonna. There wasn't going to be a turnaround. Yeah. I was very grateful to meet my donor family and experience such a meeting.
In love, man. That's got to be love.
It was a lot of emotions flying through. I could just feel it.
Yeah.
And the thing about people in my family is that we don't really show our emotions very well. Like,
I would be crying like crazy.
We're not necessarily show them, but we were able to keep our wits up. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was very excited. I was optimistic. It's one of those moments where you just gotta let whatever happens happen, and we ended up getting along, and it was really
it's beautiful.
They shared me pictures of the family, photo album and everything, and ended up making a few connections through our past and whatnot, and it was just the best way to describe it is actually weird, in a good way. And
it is an odd situation. I mean, how often are you in that situation?
Exactly.
It's like never. Yeah. You're in it once in a lifetime.
And it makes sense now. You understand why people who are affected by transplant rarely want to meet their donors or recipients
because
they want to avoid that,
weird,
and that's perfectly fine. But when you do it, it's one of those humanizing moments where first thing is that you're proud that you did it.
Yeah, my dad was an organ donor, and he was in a motorcycle accident, and I got all those like donor, things where they send it to you, like, oh, you got his eyes and lungs and stuff like that. So that made me feel it actually made me feel better. It did, because I knew that that's what my dad would have wanted. So, but to be able to meet somebody that has given you life, their family. through death. Is
And
that's such a situation.
There was a chilling moment though. She told me for people, that's the way it's been described when I tell people this. There's something called directed donation, and that's if you have a loved one who's an organ donor and they're willing to donate, you can direct. You can opt to see if it was viable for someone you know.
Really?
Yeah. And so they knew someone in New York who was in need of a transplant. But for some reason, I guess the wind blew a different direction.
Yeah.
She told me they decided that we just want to leave it to fate as to who gets the heart next.
Man.
And so I'm like, when she told me that, I just kind of like,
that's beautiful.
That one kind of like messed up my computer, my brain for a second.
The butterfly effect.
I was just like,
feeling.
I just kind of was like, thank you. like defaulted. I've just like fried. My computer just fried, and I just.
It was too much for your brain.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I was just like, whoa, that's
one that gets you later on in the car.
Yeah.
When you get in the car, you're like,
oh no, that was like late at night. I was thinking, I had such a good day, and then I remember like.
She's like, it was fate. Because they could have directed it.
Yeah, I could have went to someone else. I could have waited for whoever knows how much longer. Like
that's just.
So
too
yeah,
much.
There's just so many parts of the story that you just.
You look back now,
and
is
so
this
powerful.
Is this the deal? Is you just like you're always like,
oh yeah, a couple times I've had that. Did I actually wake up from my transplant?
Yeah,
kind of thing. You don't want to go down that road sometimes. You just be accepting of where you are.
Where it once again being in the present.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's just such a crazy. That's like a crazy story for me to hear because, like I said, I don't do well when I'm physically not there. You know what I mean? Like I've gone through a lot of emotional things, like things that are awful, but I've always had like this physical way about me, to be able to get out of it or whatever.
Yeah.
But that is just like for me. So when I kind of dove down the rabbit hole on you, I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is rough. I'm like, this is rough. And there was moments even for me where I was like, I don't know how, somebody can do that. But seeing you now, man, is just, it's great. And I love, I see you all the time. You know what I mean? I say, and I like having you around, and it's just, it's nice to, sometimes I'll like point up like, hey, do you know that guy? It has somebody else's heart. I mean, now it's his heart, but I mean, and they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, it's a heart thing, and you didn't look him up, and then they look him up, and I get a text, and they're like, oh my God, that story is amazing, and that's what I like about it is that it really can spark
really great,
something beautiful. So I mean, I got to say, like, where can the people find you? Where some of the stuff, as far as the organizations that you work with, where can they find those? Where can they do those? Where can you direct people towards that type of stuff?
Right. So the organization I work for now is New England Donor Services, and I'm a multicultural community outreach coordinator for them. So I do a lot of work here in Connecticut, especially in the Hartford, Bridgeport, and New Haven areas, to educate, especially at schools, hospitals, nurses, resident doctors, educate about the realities, myths around organ and tissue donation.
Mm-hmm.
I share my story, just like I did here.
Yeah.
And I really try to normalize my goal is to really normalize the conversation.
Yeah.
Which is really about death and dying, but it's more than just talking about what it means to be an organ donor, what happens, the process. It's one of those conversations that when it starts in the family, it really can put a family into such a great moment where they learn so much about each other.
Yeah.
I've had people, mainly students, go home, have the conversation, and they say, yeah, we're, closer as a family. And this is irregardless.
Yeah.
It's regardless if they support organ donation or not. They had this discussion where they learned so much about each other, and they're just closer as a family. They can it's easier to have a discussion
those
like
conversations.
that.
Yeah.
And that is so important.
Yeah.
And so I definitely I can say that I love my job.
That's awesome. And where can they find you?
And so they can find me. So I'm on Instagram, Fitness with AJ.
Yeah.
The organization is New England Donor Services, also on Instagram. I'm not going to give out my work email here.
Yeah, you're not getting his work email. Just reach out to him on Instagram. I mean, it's such
absolutely.
check out some of the stories on there.
Yeah. And I haven't been on YouTube in a while, but I do look forward to actually having a show of myself.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to be doing some streaming along with that too.
You need
Looking
to,
forward
man.
to some new games. I just got a new house, so I need to set up that second bedroom as that little
Dude,
workstation.
you need to. I think
can't
it's
wait.
beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Can't wait.
Yeah, man. Seriously, thank you. Thank you for doing this. I was,
Oh,
I
man,
felt
I'm
like it
glad
was
we
the right.
finally did.
It was the right, dude. I told you.
Yeah.
And I wasn't ready, and now I'm ready.
And it's summertime.
It's summertime.
And it's Friday.
And it's Friday. I'm gonna go have some limoncello. Have it in the fridge.
I'm just gonna drink my,
Yeah. You can. Yeah, you remember. You think for two. I think for only one as of right now.
and I gotta drive.
Yeah. Well, there's that too. I'm gonna get a ride. So seriously, thank you. Yeah, don't forget, hit subscribe. Hit that subscribe button.
Subscribe.
Yeah,
Don't
subscribe
give up
now.
on yourselves.
Yes, none of that. All right, we're out of here. AJ, it was a pleasure.
Always great to see you, Ben.
Let's do it.